There's a lot of talk about global warming, and to be honest with you, I almost think that it can be counterproductive because the phrase global warming brings out so much passion in two different sides.
You mentioned climate change to some people and they just roll their eyes immediately. And why has it got that connotation to it? I think probably because they've heard so many different stories, and so a skepticism grows.
I'm not totally sold on the fact that fossil fuels are actually causing global warming. I think that's up to debate. However, I do believe that there is actual climate change going on. I believe that actually occurs naturally, and that so I'm not as concerned about the global carbon footprint.
So the Climate and Energy Project in Kansas was looking at a population that a lot of other case studies didn't look at, a more conservative state, one that isn't necessarily known for having really developed efficiency programs, but they're moving in that direction. And we're really thinking hard about how do you talk about these issues, about efficiency, changing our behaviors in our homes and in our communities, in a place that, you know, if you say you did it in Kansas, you could probably do it in other places as well. You know, a lot of times we say, oh, they did it in Portland, they did it in Berkeley, and it just doesn't have quite the same resonance.
In Kansas, and I would argue elsewhere throughout the country, climate change became a politically polarized issue. It was seen here early and increasingly since as a liberal issue, as an environmental issue. And people here in the heartland do not consider themselves either liberal or environmentalists.
You don't start a conversation here with, hey, the reason you got to do this is because of climate change, because it is so politically polarized that it just shuts down the conversation.
One of the things that was really important to the success, I think, of the Climate and Energy Project's approach is that we really meet people where they are. And it's important for us to be thought of as an organization who respects their values, who is honest and open, and it really doesn't matter to us whether they believe in climate change, whether they believe it's human-induced. We're trying to find common ground.
We worked very hard to honor those people's perspectives, to respect their position, and to learn what mattered to them that also mattered to us, so that instead of reframing to make our message more palatable, we were genuinely talking about what mattered to both of us. We were identifying a shared interest and we were pursuing that with everything that we had. So what we thought about was, okay, how do we make genuine, long-term, durable alliances with the particular audiences who are persuasive, who own the narrative in Kansas? And the answer there was fairly clear. The agricultural community, the business community, the faith community were absolutely key to our success.
Wise use of resources has always been a thing that farmers do, and maybe we can roll that over into how wind energy is also a wise use of the resource. In this case, the wind, it's going to waste otherwise. I guess it seems wasteful to me not to use it, and I would think probably a lot of other landowners see it the same way. So why burn a fossil fuel that we know is eventually going to go away and at the same time let the wind energy just blow by without being utilized. So to be able to go forward and keep that ability for as many generations of Kansans going forward through the economic opportunity that alternative energy provides Kansas, I think that's very important.
Oh, I think it is definitely a heartland value because the land itself here is very precious. In some times in the past we have abused that land. Now we're managing that land and taking convertible products where before we threw them away. And we're managing the land and those resources to convert into many renewable energy resources.
We understand the need to husband our resources and our land for future generations. I mean, a lot of us grew up on the farms here, and we've been taking care of land for a long time. And now we're happy to participate in the wind energy effort that's going on. So this is just a continuation of what I believe are some basic core values in our state.
The leaders of these organizations absolutely became our messengers, and the most compelling example of that, I think, is probably Kansas Interfaith Power and Light.
Interfaith Power and Light is an ecumenical organization that also serves as an advocate both inside and outside the faith communities. It's not just about Episcopalians, they're not just Christians, it is people of all different denominations and faiths having that conversation across those cultural and religious boundaries about environmental stewardship. And they also serve as both internal advocates within the faith communities and an external advocate in the state as well, pushing for environmental stewardship and talking about it within the context of faith. Because I think there are a lot of people of faith in the state of Kansas. I think it's a big part of our culture. And so being able to have that conversation in the context of God or whatever the religion that we're working in is an important way of getting that message across to the people of Kansas.
I think a lot of people of faith view themselves as, in their part of their faith traditions, as taking care of the place we've been given to live. And so that this is about an environmental stewardship from a faith perspective, that we are to be good stewards of the bounty that we've been given.
We are a military state. We send a lot of young men and women overseas to fight, have done so for generations, are doing so very much now. So there was a real emotional sense that we don't want, and in fact, people wrote in, we don't want to send our boys to be buried in the prairie, we want to have turbines on the prairie. From
my time in the Marine Corps, I've seen people pay the ultimate human cost, as many others have known people, been very tight with people that have paid the ultimate human cost for our military presence wherever we're at in the world. And to some extent or another, our motivations for being over there are tied to our concern to natural resources. When you look at it in that respect, I don't know how anyone could not see energy independence for the United States as a win-win situation.
I think as we look at the country today, that we understand that depending upon resource from abroad for energy is very, very dangerous. I think national policy and strategic policy should wean us away from dependence on energy. The grouping of such things as solar, wind, biomass is a contributing factor to that, and I think technology is on the brink of moving us forward in a dramatic way, particularly in this area of the country.
And we can be the Saudi Arabia of wind. And I believe we have the full capacity to be able to be that, and that can be a key part of what our future is about. At the root of all of this is our need to get off of foreign oil. We have too much dependency that makes us too insecure, that's too expensive for us in that dependency on foreign oil. And harvesting the wind in Kansas and getting it to markets where it's needed around the country is critical.
Down to the age-old conflict for environmentalists, which is, do you choose economic progress or do you choose to preserve our environment? Our argument from the beginning was you can and should do both.
Our perspective is not so much worrying about whether man causes global warming, but more a matter of why don't we just make improvements that make sense economically, because there's so many of those types of improvements that can be made. Let's address the things that are easy to address first. Make environmental improvements that make sense economically for the frugal-minded Kansans that we are.
For us here in Kansas, particularly with the wind play, jobs was absolutely central being able to say that we were going to generate thousands and thousands of jobs that would be long-term, high-earning jobs in exactly the parts of Kansas that have been losing population and losing economic alternatives for generations was absolutely critical.
2009, we found out that Siemens had chosen Reno County and Hutchinson to come to open their nacelle plant. None of us knew what a nacelle was or that it belonged on a wind turbine. So we've been happy to have them here. It's changed a lot of people's lives. A lot of people have jobs that didn't have jobs before. It's just been wonderful for our economy. We needed it. We needed the jobs. And to know that it's renewable energy, simply awesome. We're thrilled. I have people that are walking taller and feeling better about themselves in a long time. So it's helped my business. It's helped our community. So I'm proud to have them here.
Affordable energy and electricity exports will help underpin Kansas's 21st century economy. We'll expand and start new wind energy projects in the state. And if we do this right, we will see the development of a renewable energy corridor throughout the state of Kansas that will provide jobs for rural Kansas and clean energy for the world. I want Kansas to not only be known as the wheat state, but also the renewable state, and we can do it.
One of the things they did really effectively is use competitions between towns to get people engaged and excited.
So the Take Charge Challenge is a competition among 16 cities in Kansas to see who can save the most energy and win a $100,000 energy efficiency or renewable energy grant. It's a competition that features leadership teams in each community working together to try to figure out what strategies they can use to get their friends and neighbors to make small changes in their homes, whether it's change their light bulbs or weatherize their homes or get a home energy audit. All of those things help the community win. It never was about climate change for them. It was about saving money, it was about saving energy, and really about beating their neighbor.
What we do is we are graded on events that you put on, presentations. The people change out energy efficient bulbs and they go on the website, know how many they changed out, and each city is given points. And so right now the city we're in #1 spot, and so we're looking to continue that. And so this is another way for us to go and get the word out to our community.
It was the competition, it was winning. That really mattered. What we did was to refigure energy efficiency from sacrifice to win, and that's a big deal. It's the difference between Jimmy Carter putting on his cardigan and saying you must sacrifice and waving a banner and saying we won, we did this.
What we found is that these behaviors kind of snowball, if you will. And so what we were hoping to do with the Take Charge Challenge is just get people started on those actions and break down those barriers so that it becomes safer to have the conversation because you're already kind of participating in it, and maybe it's not so easy to demonize when you're taking part in the movement.
So part of it starts with programs like in Kansas, where they get interest, there's a competition, they're actually tracking their results over time in terms of the light bulbs installed, the measures taken, the total savings from that town compared to another town. Those sort of metrics are extremely important. They set the stage, I think, for more infrastructure and technology changes. It definitely takes getting people interested, engaged, and motivated to even start to think about making those larger investments, to start thinking about investing $5,000, $10,000 to improve their home, to save efficiency, to save energy.
The Heartland matters in this conversation. There are people here who are doing the right thing for a variety of reasons. It's not about climate change for many of them, but they're still changing their light bulbs, they're still weatherizing their homes, they're still supporting wind energy, they're still doing the right things for the right reasons, for their reasons, and we just have to continue to respect those reasons and continue the conversations in the Heartland.
The work that we need to do on climate change is to, in fact, in real time, reduce carbon emissions. That's what actually matters, and that becomes easier and easier as we have successes along the way in reducing those carbon emissions. That part of our turning away as a nation from action on climate change is the sense that we can't do it. It's too much and it will hurt. We need to work together so that we can do it. And at that point, the conversation about climate change, in our estimation, changes 180 degrees.